important to remember that the victim, her name is Renee Good, mother of 3, who's dead today. I've looked at this video now maybe a dozen times, including at least 6 on this show yesterday. You don't have to be a law enforcement expert. You don't have to be a former Secretary of Homeland Security to know what happened, to see what happened. Let's assume that Renee Good was there in an effort to somehow obstruct the enforcement of immigration laws. She was approached by several ICE officers, agents, armed in a very menacing, aggressive fashion. Looks like she panicked and tried to veer off to the right, flee the situation, and she was shot lethally 3 times in the course of trying to flee. We know that the trajectory of her car was off to the right because after she was shot, it continued and plowed into that vehicle on the other side of the road there. And there is no law enforcement training that I know of that says that when you have someone who is trying to flee a criminal situation, lethal force is authorized to kill this person. And what I also see here that is problematic is so many of our nation's leaders are prejudging what happened here, attacking the victim and before the investigation is concluded. Actually, Tom Homan is the only one who had it right, who said, I'm going to wait the results of the investigation. Tom Homan is a career law enforcement officer who used to work for me. And Mika, if I could, the common thread through all of these types of tragedies is lack of training and de-escalation. De-escalation.
So that's, I think there's a lot of legitimate questions that you can raise, and you can raise questions. I think making these unbelievable and cruel conclusions coming from the White House is one part of the story. What's happening and what's happening with the rule of law. If anyone's surprised that the president is blaming the victim and the vice president is blaming the victim, just remember January 6th. They pardoned criminals who desecrated on the Capitol and threatened the lives of our government, our lawmakers, our members of Congress. So here we are. And this was a situation that was weeks, months, an inevitability. Governors and mayors from especially Democratic-led states were concerned about this, but this was a situation that was intentionally created, one could argue. Back down to the granular, Jonathan Lemire, the questions that we can ask at this moment is it protocol to shoot at a moving vehicle at close range? Is it protocol to take the steps to move quickly toward a car and try and enter it? Are there things that we can look at and then look at the laws and regulations for acting as an ICE officer and see if any of those protocols were broken through? Yeah, I mean, we had some former law enforcement officials on our show yesterday, including a former acting head of ICE, who said that other officers moved to walk up to the car, and suddenly aggressively grab for the door handle, was not necessary and seemed to trigger a lot of what we saw right afterwards. Police spooked the driver inside. We also, of course, and we should reiterate this, that we have video we looked at yesterday about how after she was shot, ICE agents prevented a neighbor who said he was a physician from going over to inspect. That's a huge one. So that's David Rohde. One beat here, wanted to ask you about that caught a lot of attention yesterday, and including from the vice president, was that the feds are going to run this investigation and are blocking state and local officials from access to, it seems like, evidence and the like. Talk to us about what you know about that decision. How unusual is it? Because certainly those in Minnesota were deeply alarmed.
It's very unusual, and I think politically it's a mistake. It's going to cause more suspicion, more fear of a cover-up, more questions. And when you see law enforcement after any kind of tragedy at its best, it's these transparent press conferences, the killing of Charlie Kirk, the shooting at Brown University, where they're getting out and publicly saying what they know. And the point is to be as open as possible to try to get the public to trust law enforcement. If ICE wanted some public trust, you would want to be more transparent. At least that's, you know better than I, Jay. But It's very unusual because every one of the instances I just mentioned, there's always local law enforcement. There were local officials in Utah who played a key role in finding Charlie Kirk's accused killer. And so this is just very strange. The shooting in the school, the Catholic school church in Minneapolis that happened several months ago, again, it was a joint investigation. That just happens over and over again. But politically, this is a mistake. I hate in this tragic moment to mention also the Epstein files.
Right.
But this administration, this Justice Department, this FBI should know, trust me, from them hasn't worked very well politically.
Absolutely not. And again, I take it from pardoning the January 6th rioters to everything leading up to this moment. Trust is at a minimum, Willie.
Yeah, and the vice president suggested yesterday during that news briefing that this ICE agent would have immunity in this case because of the context of the shooting. Again, jumping to all kinds of conclusions before an investigation even has begun, and even suggesting that this woman is part of a, quote, broader left-wing network. He was pressed on that by a reporter and couldn't explain what he meant by that. He just assumed that she was part of something and therefore, I guess, deserved to be shot in the face as she was driving away. Meanwhile, protests continue for a second day across the country, where people voiced outrage over the shooting and called for ICE to leave their cities. Demonstrations taking place in Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Cleveland. Communities also held vigils to honor the life of the victim, Renee Nicole Good. The Trump administration deployed about 500 additional agents to Minnesota, adding to the roughly 2,000 DHS personnel already on the ground. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota has placed the National Guard on standby, ready to help police to keep those demonstrations peaceful, which they have been to this point. Joining us now live from Minneapolis, MS Now reporter Nnamdi Eganwu. Nnamdi, good morning.
Good morning, Willie. You know, a very active scene this morning outside of the street where the shooting took place a couple days ago. As you can see, there's a big police presence here. One thing we've observed over the last 2 days is protesters had essentially made the street where the shooting took place a sanctuary. They created barricades, makeshift barricades, using pieces of wood, chairs, even lime scooters to cordon off the street, and had vigils there. Demonstrators would frequently come. They were passing out pizza and coffee. People would come drive hours just to pay their respects and see where this shooting took place. Well, that changed this morning. We saw dozens of city police arrive here and throw a lot of those materials into a dump truck that just left moments ago. What we were told is that there was at least one instance of emergency crews trying to access that street, and they were denied by protesters. That's a fact that at least one protester acknowledged to us today when we asked about it. So there was what we were told, a legal obligation by the city to clear this route and make sure that it was accessible. But it comes as, like you mentioned, protests have continued overnight here. Protests, and these protesters, I have to tell you, are upset. Among the things they're upset about is the rush to judgment you all just referenced from the vice president. There's a lot of people upset that the state, that there's an attempt to sideline the state in this investigation. And there's a lot of people upset about what we saw after that shooting on Wednesday, when we saw ICE agents go to a local high school here. Even though the Department of Homeland Security have clarified that those agents didn't enter the school, but they made an arrest outside of the school. And the timing of that arrest coincided with when dismissal happened. So students were caught in the fray, teachers were caught in the fray. We know at least one educator was arrested. And that's resulted in classes being canceled at least until Monday. The effect that that's had is we've seen a lot of people, a lot of young people specifically at these demonstrations lately, including one high schooler I spoke to yesterday that went to Roosevelt High School. I want to play for you what she told me about what she saw that day inspired her to join protest.
It's just disgusting, and it's just so, like, dehumanizing to those people, and, like, they're our friends, and, like, I go to school with, like, there's a huge Somali population at Roosevelt High School, which is where I go, and it's just terrifying to see. Like, I know that those students were terrified when I showed up to our school yesterday, and I just think it's disgusting.
Governor Walz today really has encouraged local officials, regardless of their political affiliation, to condemn any sort of immigration enforcement effort at or near schools. Willie.
Nnamdi, I just want to be clear about those extraordinary images we're seeing there. Those ICE agents in military fatigues arriving at the high school were there to apprehend students, teachers. Who were they after there?
So, according to the Department of Homeland Security, they were actually trying to apprehend a U.S. citizen who they said took them on a 5-mile chase that ended at the school. So, they say that when they went to go approach that citizen at a time that happened to coincide with when dismissals were taking place, it led to the scene that you see now. Teachers getting involved, a student sort of getting involved, caught in the fray, at least one instance of crowd control measures being used. Again, the department has emphasized that they typically do not try to enter schools. They don't conduct raid at schools, but they have also said that if there is a citizen that flees to a school or an attempt to use a school to avert being detained, they will go forward and try to, continue to detain that person, even if it is nearby a school. So again, they weren't actively chasing students or teachers, but during this clash, at least one educator ended up being arrested.
MS Now reporter Nambi Aganwu reporting live from Minneapolis. Nambi, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Mika?
Well, the editors of the National Review have a new piece entitled The Minnesota Tragedy, which reads in part, for its part, the Trump administration hasn't been content to simply say that the ICE officer feared for his life and acted in self-defense. Instead, they have called the incident domestic terrorism and suggested Renee Good deliberately tried to run down the officer, which seems to be contradicted by the video evidence. ICE's mission is an important one. It deserves a serious, factual defense and shouldn't be a platform for Kristi Noem to constantly perform for the cameras. The Wall Street Journal editorial board, meanwhile, has a new piece titled The ICE Shooting in Minneapolis, which reads in part, the heated way Mr. Trump has gone about his mass deportation policy and the equally heated way that the left has opposed it made a violent collision inevitable. If Democrats are wise, they'll calm the furies and caution against obstructing ICE agents who have the legal right to enforce immigration law. As for Mr. Trump, violent episodes like this aren't going to help him or his party in November. His mass deportation policy is already unpopular and will become more so if there are more such violent incidents. He'd also be wise to calm the furies, but we say this knowing how unlikely that is. So a couple of things here. You do see a growing effort that's amplified by Trump supporting TV hosts, which I had the displeasure of watching yesterday, blaming protesters. And I see this building now. There's this sort of attempt to sort of turn this around. This isn't the ICE agents. They're just people trying to do their job, which they are. Being put in a terrible position by President Trump, his Department of Homeland Security. They are being put in a terrible position. They are armed. They are dressed like they're going to war.
Yeah.
And being put in urban communities. And it's a surprise that people are scared, that people are using their rights of free speech, that people are videotaping what is happening to their friends, their neighbors, their workers who are being taken away, often in violent ways, in frightening ways. And I worry, Jay Johnson, that this is, again, Trump's talent of turning things. I mean, he was able to get enough Republicans to stand down on pardoning the rioters at January. I mean, they're not even talking. Some Republicans act like it never happened and go, oh, my gosh. Yeah. You know, just forget about it. That happened already.
Many of whom reportedly have committed crimes subsequent to January 6th. Mika, when I was Secretary of DHS, I used to tell ICE leadership, prioritize the bad guys. And
Right.
This administration seemed to start off doing that, prioritize the bad guys for enforcement. And when you're out on the streets in urban areas like Minneapolis, use your common sense. One notorious incident can derail the entire mission in a community like this. One unlawful shooting, one arrest of someone on a church steps, showing up at a school, scaring the children at a school, can derail the entire mission. I also worry about the type of people that are being recruited now for ICE. The recruitment rhetoric is defend your culture. What does that mean? I think that's a dog whistle, basically, for let's go after the great replacement. If you're Mexican American, for example, in South Texas, interested in enforcing the law, defend your culture is not a message for you. If you're a Muslim American in Michigan or Minneapolis, interested in enforcing the law, going into law enforcement, defend your culture is not a message for such a person. That basically you need not apply. And so I do worry about the people we are recruiting for this very sensitive, delicate mission. And again, tactics and de-escalation are so important, whether it's the ICE or New York City Police or whatever.
On the idea of de-escalation, Mr. Secretary, I'd argue that what the Vice President did yesterday was escalate.
Yeah.
You know, that rhetoric from the White House podium, and this is from J.D. Vance, who's been a little less visible of late because of the focus on Venezuela. He's much more an isolationist. There's been speculation about his standing right now. But he went front and center yesterday and defended this.
Right.
Said that the ICE agents should be going door to door, which is with new rhetoric from him yesterday as to what they'd be doing going forward. And I think my question to you is, at a moment, Minneapolis in particular is a city that's been a powder keg for years now. But, we're seeing incidents in other cities as well, significant protests. What are your fears that tensions are so high right now that another incident could happen, whether it's instigated by an ICE agent or a protester?
High. My concern is high right now. The litmus test for our elected leaders in a moment like this is, are you amping it up in your rhetoric, or are you trying to tamp it down? Are you trying, for example, Spencer Cox, governor of Utah, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk there. Are you trying to calm people's fears down, or are you simply playing to your base and trying to amp it up? And I'm afraid there are too many in the latter category right now.
Yeah, Willie.
David Rode, we heard the Vice President yesterday say time and time again that Renee Good rammed or attempted to ram or drove her car into this agent who ultimately shot and killed her. We obviously don't see that in the available video that we've all watched now for almost 48 hours. As we said yesterday, we want the full context. We want to know what happened in the moments, the minutes, maybe the hours before that. Have you, as a reporter, seen any video? Have you heard any eyewitness account that supports the argument, which is core to this, from what the administration is saying, that Renee Good used her car as a weapon, drove her car at the agent, therefore he was justified in self-defense?
And I'm not as much of an expert as Jay on this. I have not seen evidence or videos that clearly showed what her intent was. I thought Jay's description of her panicking was very appropriate. And it's why, again, making so much of this investigation, or as much of this investigation as possible, public is so key. I hate to talk about this, but the autopsy, which shot killed her. There was apparently, there's an initial shot. You could see it through the windshield there, but shots through the passenger side window.
Yeah.
Clearly, the person firing through the passenger side window was not about to be hit by the car. So these are huge questions. And just more broadly, I just want to point out, President Trump and Stephen Miller have set a quota that these ICE agents are constantly pushed to meet. This is not searching out the worst of the worst. They wanted to deport 1 million people. They've gotten hundreds of thousands instead, but there's enormous pressure on these ICE officers to just hunt down people in city after city and hit this quota. And that, again, that's not leading to fact-based, fair law enforcement operations, and it's just putting enormous pressure on these ICE officers.
Now, there's definitely a lot of questions that need to be answered by an extended investigation that's now being held off by the state. I think the state's going to push back and try and get in there, as they should. But those 2 shots through the side of the window will definitely be, it'll be very interesting to see which ones actually killed the victim in this case. Also, the first ICE agent moving quickly toward the car might have caused the panic. Again, all questions. And the vice president has helped with the investigation in one way, pointing out that this shooter, the ICE agent in this case, was apparently extremely sensitive, a victim of trauma. And so you wonder about not just the training, but the regulations about putting ICE agents in the field who are suffering from trauma. Sounds like a very bad decision. Still ahead on Morning Joe, President Trump says he's canceled a second wave of attacks on Venezuela. We'll show you those new comments. and what he's saying about the future of the South American country. Plus, Democratic Congressman Richie Torres joins us to preview new legislation that would ban lawmakers from betting on political prediction markets. This after one mystery trader made $400,000 placing a wager on Nicolas Maduro's downfall. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
This is you. You soak every second in. You wish the universe was bigger and smaller. You have so much love to give. Those parts of you feel out of reach right now. Depression and anxiety can do that. But we're gonna get you feeling like yourself again, Becca. Step by step. Okay.
This is my gorgeous Spencer panel bed. It's available in 2 finishes for only $3.99.
And this is the matching dresser and mirror, only $5.99. And the matching nightstand, only $1.99. This is what they look like separately.
And this is what they could look like together in your home. Plus, when you bundle the bedroom set, you save almost $200.
Wow. They're great on their own, but so much better together.
Oh, my Bob!
Bob's Discount Furniture.
Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. Bombas is socks, slippers, tees, and underwear. Crafted with the finest materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for great gifts. You chose comfort, softness, a bit of So run in Bombas, sleep in Bombas, pet a llama in Bombas, give back in Bombas. Because with every purchase, one is donated. Bombas. Visit bombas.com.
1 second, it's a pipe dream. And the next, it's a dream come true. 1 second, you know it's all protected. And then...
Is everything okay?
The police have been dispatched.
well, we still do.
Liberty Mutual customizes.
Wait, am I in one of those Liberty Mutual commercials where they stand in front of the Statue of Liberty and talk about how Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
Yes.
Huh. What happens in this one?
Seagulls.
Oh, I like it. How are you doing?
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
JB Smoove, what are you doing here?
I'm always here. I know what you're doing here, though.
Consumer Cellular commercial. You know, we should get you signed up.
Aren't I too young?
We got deals for people over 50.
That sounds great. Sign me up. Make it happen, Teddy.
Right now, get your second month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
Hi, this is Sona. How can I help you?
With Quo's business phone system, you can train your own AI agent to help customers even when you're fast asleep. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Try for free today.
This is Bombas. They took socks and asked what if they could be way more comfortable? What if comfort could be for everyone? At Bombas, one purchased equals one donated. Get 20% off your first order at bombas.com.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
I believe in the United States of America. As a government of the people, by the people, for the people. A democracy in a republic. A sovereign nation of many sovereign states. A perfect union. One and inseparable. Established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to respect its flag, to support its Constitution.
Nearly 1 week now after the capture and arrest of Venezuela's former leader, President Trump this morning is touting the cooperation, as he calls it, between the United States and that South American country. The president citing Venezuela's release of political prisoners as a sign the country is seeking peace, adding that he, quote, canceled the previously expected second wave of attacks, which he says, quote, looks like will not be needed. Meanwhile, President Trump telling Fox News last night he will meet with Nobel Peace Prize winner and Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado next week. Trump previously said it would be tough for Machado, who won the opposition primary 2 years ago before being barred from the general election, to assume the role of leader because she does not have what he called respect within the country. During last night's interview, the president also threatened land strikes on drug cartels inside of Mexico.
We've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by water.
By and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law enforcement officers at risk every single
day. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country. But the cartels are running, and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year. The drugs, it's horrible. We'll be running the oil. We're meeting tomorrow with all of the big oil executives. We're going to be right here in the White House. We're going to meet with the, biggest oil people in the world. They're all coming here. The top 14 companies are coming here. They're going to go in. They're going to rebuild the whole oil infrastructure. They're going to spend at least $100 billion. And it's an unbelievable oil that they have and an unbelievable quality of oil and amount of oil.
So, David Rohde, you are writing about this morning, this idea, this plan for the oil, to have the American oil companies, who the president will meet with today, the heads of those companies, as he said there in that interview, they will spend a lot of money to go in to take out the oil. This, of course, is a multi-year project, and as you're reporting this morning, not all the oil companies are that excited about spending tens of billions of dollars to bring oil down to $50 a barrel.
Yeah, this is a sort of extraordinary example of the President of the United States sort of telling private companies what to do. Venezuela does have the largest oil reserves in the world, but it's heavy crude, and over the last more than decade, the equipment to get it out of the ground has just weathered there and is in terrible shape. So right now, Venezuela provides only 1% of the world's oil supply, 1%. At best, if these companies go in and spend this money that the president is sort of telling them to do, it will increase to 2%. That is not going to dramatically bring down energy prices worldwide. So the president's whole narrative here is essentially false. And I talked to oil experts about this, and they say it will take 10 years and at least $60 billion of investment to start producing enough oil that has a major impact beyond 2% of the global supply. And again, this is sort of just an extraordinary example of a Republican president pressuring private companies to go in a country that, and actually one key thing for the companies is that it's not secure yet. In Iraq, where it took years to restore the oil industry there were U.S. troops on the ground. There's no security guarantees for those companies. There's no elections. There's no stable government. So it's a huge risk for these companies. And again, the government telling private industry what to do. It's in what may be a very bad move for these companies economically.
So Jay Johnson, I was about to ask you how this happens without troops on the ground, but why don't I pepper this question with a little reporting on Donald Trump's wide-ranging interview with the New York Times. Trump was asked this week whether he felt there were any limits to his global powers. Trump told the group of reporters, quote, "Yeah, there's one thing, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me." He added, "I don't need international law. I'm not looking to hurt people." When pressed further about whether his administration needed to abide by international law, Trump said, "I do," but he made clear he would be the arbiter when such constraints applied to the United States. He said, quote, "It depends what your definition of international law is." In that, We heard the president talking about the oil companies going into Venezuela and getting the oil, beautiful oil. And I'm just wondering how that happens without troops on the ground and massive complications.
Good question. Unless these oil companies plan to hire massive security firms to go in and protect what they need to do. Venezuela believes that they've nationalized the oil there. And so it's hard to imagine how a private company can just simply march in to this very large country and start exploring for oil, taking oil, if there's no popular will to do that in the country. By the way, the president's view of international law, that's the cynic's view, that basically those that have the biggest guns make the rules. And so I'm not sure the president fully understands international law. There was no real international legal basis for going into Venezuela in the first place without a UN Security Council resolution. And so he's getting way out ahead of himself in this. I'd be interested to hear, David, what the CEOs of all these oil companies think or what they're planning to do.
They haven't talked publicly at this point because I think they're afraid. The president has used leverage. He used it against universities. He used it against law firms. He can take away tax breaks. He can pressure them to do things. And just back to the big guns, having all of these ships present and all these troops costs taxpayers money. The American public is paying, whether it's troops on the ground or troops in the region, taxpayers are funding this entire Trump administration effort in Venezuela. Mike Barnicle said he spoke to a former military official who said that just the operation itself cost anywhere to get Maduro, cost anywhere that one night from $500 million to $1 billion. So this is not free to American taxpayers.
It's cost, but also there's a political cost. I mean, even some Republicans and even some of the MAGA right who oppose on principle some of this international adventurism have gotten behind the president and said, oh, good, let's do Venezuela, let's get rid of Maduro. But if suddenly there's going to be actual boots on the ground, a lengthy operation, that is going to be very different for him to sell. I think you'll see more pushback. We'll get into it a little later. Some Republicans on the Hill did defy President Trump yesterday on the War Powers resolution. We'll talk about that in a moment. But, I think there would be more and more willingness to do that. It's very hard to sell the American people, red state or blue, for a continued American military presence far from home like that.
All right, former Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson and MS Now senior national security reporter David Rohde, thank you both very much for coming in this morning. And coming up, the latest from Capitol Hill on the fight to restore health care subsidies for millions of Americans. Morning Joe is coming right back.
Wellness perfectly picked for you. Now at Target.
Der Club.
Der Club?
Der Club.
Willkommen im Club.
Dieser Club rockt.
It's Tanzagamen Club.
Jetzt fliegt der Club zu mir.
Rosetta Stone's language learning tools may just be too immersive.
If you want total health care from a provider you trust,
hi, Blair. Hi.
Right in the palm of your hand, if you want soup, sweatpants, and zero in-person contact, if you want wellness wherever, our virtual primary care delivers with great website manner.
No worries.
So choose your doctor from our profiles and enjoy the healthiest online relationship you've ever had. House calls have evolved.
This is my gorgeous Spencer panel bed. It's available in 2 finishes for only $3.99.